All right, today we are graphing sine and cosine. So we're not just looking at equations or just looking at graphs. We are actually going to put the graph on the paper. So this is a process that takes a little while, but if you focus and you try your hardest, you will do just fine. Okay, so the process is a few steps that if you follow through, you should be okay. The first thing you want to do is find your Darpy. Or dairy picks. I haven't decided which one is better. Okay, so first you figure out what DAR is, what these values are. So D, remember, is your midline. And so, know where that is, y equals D. A is tells you a few things. The first thing, if you do the absolute value of A, it's your amplitude, which is important. The second thing, it helps you find your first and your second point. By first, I mean where it hits the y-axis. So it's your y-axis point. And then it also, helps you if it's sine, it moves on. So let's do this here. So if this is, let's do sine first. So if A is positive, it's a plus. A is positive and it's sine. We're going to start at the midline. So it works the same way for sine. Always starts in the midline. It doesn't matter. So starts means hits the y-axis. So it hits the y-axis at the midline, always. If sine is positive, then the next point is going to be the max, or up. If sine is negative, it's going to be the min, and it's going to go down. The second point is the min. If it's negative and it's cosine, or let's do positive and it's cosine. If it's positive and cosine, then it starts right at the max. So it's the first point that you're finding. And if it's negative and it's cosine, then it's going to start at the min. So the amplitude tells you a lot. So noting those things is a good idea. The range is what the range is telling you is your max or your min and your max. So remember, it's D minus A, D minus the amplitude, and D plus the amplitude. So what this is going to tell you is this is the lowest value on the graph, and this is the highest value on the graph. All these things relate to y. So DAR all tell you the y. Everything that you're going to put on the y-axis and what's, that kind of thing. The next part, these two are going to tell you the x-axis. So separating those felt like a good idea. So P stands for period, and as you know, it's 2 pi over b. So if you're given the equation, obviously 2 pi over b. The interval is the only new thing here, and it's telling us where the points that we graph, where those points hit, or when those points hit. So it's always the period divided by 4. Okay, there we go. Good, so that's Darpy. The second thing that you're going to want to do here is place your x and y axis. Okay, so sometimes they give you a graph and you can skip this part. Sometimes they don't and you have to draw it. So the first day we're going to be drawing them. So how do you place them? Well, you place the y axis based on the directions. So based on directions. Then you place the x axis based on the max and the min. So based on the range. Okay, so you have to actually draw the x and y axis. And then the last thing you want to do is graph it. So there's a few steps to graphing it that we will run through, obviously, but you're going to want to label your x-axis with the interval. And this uses the interval. That's the funnest part, in my opinion. And label, basically just make it easy for yourself. So you're going to want to label the max, the min, and the midline. Ugh, why does it write so poorly? Anyway, and then place the first point. So once you've placed the first point, everything else is going to be pretty easy. But that's the only reason it's easy is because you've done all this stuff beforehand. Okay, so let's see how this is going to go. Oh my goodness, this is so much fun. I love this. All right, so let's use blue. I do like to use a couple colors when I'm graphing here because it just makes it easier to see. Separating the x-axis and the midline is definitely useful. All right, so what we have. So first we're going to figure out what DARPy is, or Dairy Pix. So D is, so the midline is y equals -2. So remember, I'm just finding these. I'm not even touching the graph just yet. A is -2. Since A is -2, we know the amplitude is 2. That's beautiful. But what we're really looking for at this point is the first point, or the point on the y-axis. So it's sine, so it's going to be the midline. So it's going to hit the y-axis and the midline. And this is negative, so you know the next point is going to go down to the minimum. All right, then the range is -2 minus 2 to -2 plus 2. So the range is -4 to 0. So you know this is the min and this is the max. So far, awesome. Okay, so the period, 2 pi over b. All right. So the only way reason we use this period here is to find the, sorry, I'm having small issues, is to find the interval. So that's what the interval is telling us. So the interval is the period divided by 4. Now this looks nasty, but remember it's just keep, change, flip. The 4 reduces there, so it becomes pi over 6. All right, so now to graph it. Well, place your y-axis and your x-axis. So the first thing, I'm going to place my y-axis based on the directions. So the directions tell me to do -pi to pi, so that means it probably should be in the middle. Right about here, I guess. Whatever. There's no line drawing tool on this thing. Well, there probably is. I just don't know where it is. Okay, so that's my y-axis. Use a ruler. It's nice. Okay, it needs to be in the middle because I need after and before it. Then we want to place our x-axis. Our x-axis is based on the range here. So the range is from -4 to 0. So that means I don't need a lot of positive y values. All I need are negative. So I'm going to draw this up there. Okay, not perfect, but you know, here we go. Now, the next thing is we want to graph it. So graphing it, you want to label your x-axis as interval first. So labeling the x-axis as interval. This is where we get the interval from. Okay, so basically this is going to tell us how many points we need. And this is where I said counting by weird things is an important part of this. So we always start at 0. So we're always going to start on the y-axis. And then our interval, we're going to go up by pi over 6. So every pi over 6, there's going to be a change in the graph. There's, you're going to go to the midline, the max, the min, whatever. So we have to count by pi over 6s until I get to the range that the interval that they're talking about. So I start at a 0. This is 1 pi over 6, 2 pi over 6s, 3 pi over 6, 4, 5, and 6. 6 pi over 6, that is pi. You could reduce the rest of them, but I don't really need those numbers. I just do that so I know how many dashes to put on the line. On the x-axis. So I need, you have the 0, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dashes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you need 6 of them. This is the pi. You should at least label 1 or 2 spots. Don't label them all. That's excessive. So I like to say what my interval is, and I put the first dash is always that, and the last one is always the end piece. And then I'm going to go backwards, but backwards is exactly the same. It's 0, negative pi over 6, 2, negative 2 pi over 6, etc. So I'm going to have the same number of dashes. So let's put those on. Six. Okay, I don't have to label those because I've labeled one already. All right, now we want to label the min, the max, and the midline. So my min and my max are negative 4 and 0. So I'm going to label my 0. Use a different color so you can see it. Okay. This is 0. This is going to be 1, 2, which is where my midline is. Negative 2, excuse me. Okay, graph your midline with a dotted line. Again, use a ruler. This is poor. And then 2, 3, negative 3, negative 4. I like to skip some because these graphs are a little big. So this is my min. So I have labeled them just so that I know what the max is, what the min is, and where the midline is. Okay, now I'm going to place my first point. So my first point is right at the midline. My first point is on the y-axis always. All right, my second point now goes down, so that's my min. And now I just follow the pattern. Every dash, I am going to put another point. Oh, because that went up too high because of my wonderful drawing skills. Okay, and then this one, so I went this way here. Now I have to keep going backwards, so I'm going up now. So this should be here. So follow the pattern. Same pattern, just keep in mind all the dashes. I don't know why it's doing that. Okay, and then when you do draw it, actually draw it. Don't use a ruler. Just, make it curvy. All right, we're going to do one more. It'll be quicker because it's a slightly easier one. So I can show you just one with cosine. All righty. So, oh boy. Okay, so this is A, this is B, this is D. So it's y equals 2. A is 3. Now this is cosine, so it's going to start at the max or hit the y-axis at the max. The range is 2 minus 3 and 2 plus 3. So that is our range of values. And then we have our period, which is 2 pi over 8. That looks nasty, but it's awesome when it looks like this. So it's 2 pi over 1. Keep, change, flip. So the 8 goes on top, the pi goes on the bottom, and the pi's go away. Don't we love it? We get 16. And then the interval is period divided by 4, which is just 4. All right. So we did that. Now what we need to do is we need to place our x and y axis. So let's graph our y axis. So it says graph one cycle. So as we know, one cycle is 5 points. So it doesn't matter what 5 points you choose. Just have to choose 5. So I'm going to choose to do the positive ones. So I'm going to put my y-axis here. My x-axis now is based on the range. So I want to go from -1 to 5. So that means I have to make this guy a little lower here. All right, that's my x-axis. So I have to go down to -1. I'll put it in a different color so you can see. So if I have to go down to -1, that's my lowest, that's my min. And then I'm skipping 2 because I like to do that. So 1, 2, this is my midline. Again, make the midline dashed. I don't know why it does that. This program is interesting. And then that is my 5. So I labeled my max, I labeled my min, and I drew my midline. So those are my pieces. Now I want to label my put the dashes on the x-axis, excuse me. And what I do is I count by the interval. So I always start with 0 because I'm on the y-axis. That's 1 point. 4. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points for one cycle. So I just count by 4s till I get there. 8, 12, 16. So those are the ones I need. So for this one, I'm going to go just use the graph because I have enough. So I have the y-axis, 4, 8, 12, and 16. And I don't really need to label them because, as we said, if there's no label, that means that it's all by ones. Finally, let's graph it. So we place the first point. The first point is the maximum. So then I'm at my maximum. The only way to go is down. So the next dash I put on the midline. The next dash I go to my min. That's as low as I can go. So the next one is going to go up and then up. This is where you have to really visualize. And then that's one cycle of cosine. So then you just curve it up a little and you're done. So it goes a little faster. Obviously when I'm teaching it, it's a little slow. But practice makes perfect. Or, yeah. Have a good day. Bye.